Hi, I'm Mark Honeybone from Property Ventures, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we interview prominent members of the investment community along with other professionals in the New Zealand property market. This is a free service from Property Ventures so that you can keep current and learn from some of the best around New Zealand. To check us out, take a look at propertyventures.co.nz. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hi all and welcome to our latest podcast. Today we talk to David Howells from Real Estate Investor. This is an online tool that many investors use to search for property details, previous sales, and a whole lot more information that you'll learn about in the next half hour or so. We hope you enjoy the show today. So welcome to the show, David.
Hey Mark, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast at last. I've been listening to it for a few months now, and it's really valuable stuff for investors.
Yeah, no, it's become very popular, and I know we've been trying to get you for a while too, but you've had your readers to hold off, as in you've had some new changes happen, which I'm sure we'll hear about in the next wee while. But we'll start off just so listeners know, what is Real Estate Investor and why was it developed?
Good question. Real Estate Investor is a platform that provides a suite of tools to property investors who invest in the New Zealand market and in the Australian market. And we developed Real Estate Investor 9 years ago now, solely for the point of arming investors with tools and information that make the process of investing in property a lot simpler, a lot more transparent, but also easier for them to do their research, easier for them to do their numbers, to make sure whether they're negotiating with agents by contract or buying at auction that they've got their numbers in order and that they're not paying too much basically for property really at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's obviously pretty important at the moment, especially with the auctions, because if you're in the Auckland market right now, the investors will know that you have to go into an auction not wanting to pay too much, so you want to have your deadline of what you're going to pay for a property. So if any tools you can have to help that process is obviously a bonus.
Yeah, well, but the Auckland market is a good example. When you've got a heated market and you've got the media talking about the growth in the market, and then that's reinforced with agents that treat investors generally with disdain when there's lots of buyers and not many properties. The agents aren't always the easiest to deal with as an investor. And then you go to an auction room where sometimes there's 5 or 7 properties being auctioned one after the other, and there's 150 people in the room, and you're really not sure whether you're competing with 2 buyers or 20 buyers. It's all set up to create, that pressure and that psychology of it being a situation where you've got to act quickly and be decisive and not miss out. So if you've done your research and you know what your ceiling is, you're less likely to get carried away with the momentum and the enthusiasm and the hype, and not then regret paying 10 or 20 or 50 or $100,000 too much when the dust settles a week later.
Absolutely, take that emotion out of the purchase.
Yeah.
So you probably just asked a part of the question, but so how does the Real Estate Investor help property investors? Obviously, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, primarily, in my experience, when you go into investing, you've generally got a day job or a business. It's not your profession. It starts as a hobby, right?
Yeah.
But for most of us, it's the biggest investing decision or biggest financial decision we're going to make in our lives, other than our own home. And so new investors go into investing with the mindset of I need to get into the market. They may have come from a background where they have a view that the agents are only ever going to be helpful in terms of the information they provide, and that nothing untoward's going to happen. And when you become an investor and you're very numbers focused, then it's easy for it to become quite intimidating quite quickly, particularly when you're dealing with agents in a fast-moving market. And what you find with investors is, half of them will charge into investing, and most of them will do okay. The other half will sit on their hands and have, analysis paralysis and be so fearful of getting started because they don't know their numbers that they do nothing. And neither of those is necessarily a good thing. So in terms of helping investors to say, I know what I can afford, and I can afford this property if I pay this much because the returns are X and the cash flow is Y, then at a simplest level, helping people build portfolios safely and securely is really what the focus of our services and our business is.
Yeah, and just adding, I suppose, to what you said there about talking to the real estate agent, if you have your own facts and figures already in place and you can show a bit of knowledge when you're talking to them, the more knowledge you have, the sort of bit more respect you generally get from agents. Also, they're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So.
Yeah, and just, I guess, a really classic example. There's 2 classic examples, right? One example is a vendor has been trying to sell their property for some months. It might have gone to auction, may have been passed in below reserve. The 90-day period's rolled round. They've now listed it with a new agent. Maybe they've done that 2 or 3 times. Maybe it's 9 months into it. Anyway, the latest agent has had it listed for 5 days. And so the latest agent says to the buyer, you better be quick, this is a new listing, it's going to go fast.
Yeah.
When the investor can see it's been on the market for 9 months, changed agents, been passed into auction, gone through price reductions, etc., then it just really balances out the playing field, because then they actually know that the vendor actually is not able to sell a property easily, maybe more negotiable, but also the agent straight off the bat is trying to pull the wool over their eyes. So that's a scenario that really helps the buyer in terms of having their facts and understanding the playing field from a starting point.
Absolutely, and it's a tool I use quite often, just seeing how long it has been on the market for, because you know how negotiable they are. You can see the changes in the price they've had and what's going on. So, hey, just moving on. So what sort of property data can you get from it? And just for the cynics out there that are listening, can't you just go online and for free and get from other websites?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the great thing about the way that the world's evolving now, Mark, is so much more information is more freely available or accessible right down to your mobile device. So we provide a suite of tools. So Investor Search is a search engine that takes the listings from across the entire country off multiple sites, and it allows you to filter and sort the results based on investment criteria, but also then wraps the data around each of those properties automatically. So at a data level, if I'm looking at property on the market, the kind of data I can now get that I want to see is how fast the stock's selling, what are the long-term capital growth prospects like, what are the yields right now, what's my expected market rent, how quickly is the population growing, how much demand is there in the area, what's the makeup of the stock. So it's easy in a suburb for there to be an excess of 2-bedroom units, but a shortage in a supply of 3-bedroom houses. So you can have a different scenario where within a suburb there's a glut of some stock or high vacancy rates for some stock because of oversupply, you get a shortage of other stock. So that kind of information you really want to have at hand. So at a search level, we can do that. At an analysis level, we can automatically, in the space of just a few seconds, analyze income, expenses, cash flow, depreciation, and look at our pre-tax position from a weekly and annual point of view. And then when we plug in the CoreLogic platform, which may be known to your listeners by the name of QV or Property IQ, RPNZ, one and the same company, who provide sales data and valuation data to agents, valuers, and banks. As an investor, when I can then access that and say, what's sold recently, how much did it sell for, how does it compare to this property, what's its estimated valuation, and if I'm to subdivide or develop or renovate, what's my end value look like versus my cost of acquiring the property today, it starts to make it a whole lot easier for me to build a picture and make sure the investing decision makes sense. So you can certainly get more and more data online, and part of the trap is some of it's at a very generic level, so all houses and all units as opposed to down to bedroom level. Some of it's very anecdotal in terms of this house sold and here's 5 other house sales that are comparable, and when you drill down they're not comparable. You're comparing 4 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, 1,500 square metre section to a 600 square metre section. So at a what we call a portal level, like a TradeMe or a realestate.co.nz, they provide, I guess, a light level of information. Our partnership with CoreLogic allows an investor to access the exact same data as quickly as an agent, a valuer, a bank, or a mortgage broker can, which really gives them access to data that commercially used to cost $300 and upwards per month, just at a regional level, not even at a national level. Now clients now access that for a fraction of that price nationally. Yeah,
right. So as an investor, you get the same information with all the experts at the same time in the one same program. You can do the analysis for that particular property, and I guess can keep any properties you've looked at and the history of what you looked at, and then once you do buy, you can put all of your portfolio into the one basket, I guess, and see the overall performance from it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And let's face it, dealing with agents is one challenge, dealing with vendors is another challenge. Dealing with valuers, often for many of us, we come unstuck when we come to deal with the valuer. And again, if I take more time and I say, these are 5 to 10 comparables to support my valuation assumption, and the valuer does a once over likely, doesn't look deeply into the information type valuation, I've got the ability to push back and say, actually, based on my research, which is, you could have done this if you'd actually looked more closely, here's the assumptions I've come to, and our experience is that our members say that more than half of the time they'll get a valuer to revisit a property valuation on the basis of the investor providing more detailed data the valuer just didn't take the time to look at. And as the valuation model or industry changes with data and online platforms now, valuers get paid less and less and want to do the job faster and faster and don't always give it the care or detail that you would in terms of coming to those conclusions around comparable property sales.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, you mentioned CoreLogic before, and those listeners that don't know what CoreLogic is, as far as I'm aware anyway, it's an amalgamation of RPNZ and Property Guru, and I know some agents use one or the other. We use both, and as you said, valuers use one or the other, maybe both as well. You're obviously got some sort of partnership with them, so how's that work into your program?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. So historically, quotable value was a state-owned enterprise in the good old state-owned enterprise days.
Yeah.
And RP Data in Australia, now known as CoreLogic, is the largest data provider in Australia and one of the largest players in the US and in Southeast Asia. So a few years ago now, RPNZ said it's nuts to compete with QV. The market's not big enough. They entered into a joint venture and they put RPNZ and quotable value together as a single enterprise, and they had product brands like Property IQ and iAdvise. They had a competitor in TerraLink, which they purchased about, I think, 18 months ago.
Yep.
And I think they still licensed data in Property Guru in a quasi-competitor type way. A bit like, in the old days, Telecom licensed the phone lines to Vodafone so it could have a competitor. So where CoreLogic is the market leader in Australasia and providing data to banks, to insurers, to valuers, and to agents, really nobody had focused on how do we help the consumer, who actually is 250,000 people in New Zealand and about 1.9 million people in Australia who actually invest in property. So we've partnered with CoreLogic, we're now known as RPNZ, about 5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest inhibitors that we had for our clients was pricing was high for accessing their platform because that's what the industry pays. The great thing about our partnership is CoreLogic in New Zealand have recognised that the investor actually is a very valuable space. And so we now have access to pricing as of April of this year. It's seen our pricing reduced by anywhere between 40 and 50% over where it was, which now gives access to the real estate platform nationally, which includes all of the CoreLogic platform. For a price that makes a lot more sense. So we've got a long-term partnership with CoreLogic to help them in the investor space. We're the market leader, I guess, in Australasia after 9 years of focusing on this area. And the end result of the partnership is lower cost data, better tools that work in a solution-based environment to help an investor get from building a portfolio to managing a portfolio and optimizing the returns over the medium and long term.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're saying it's obviously in both New Zealand and Australia, so you can analyse any property in the two countries. How many sort of investors use Investor? What's the breakdown of, more so New Zealand people, I guess, than Australian?
Yeah, good question. So Real Estate Investor is 9 years old, based in New Zealand and Australia. We have 129,000 registered users of our site who subscribe and receive our news and market reports on a weekly basis.
Wow.
And we have about 3,000 clients who pay and use our premium services around Real Estate Investor membership, which includes all of our portfolio building and analysis tools. And that's split pretty similarly to population in terms of spread. But interestingly, we have New Zealanders who live in Vietnam, UK, Dubai, US, who use our tools to help them continue to invest in the New Zealand market as expats, so that one day when they return home from their careers, they've built a portfolio within New Zealand they can return to managing from an investment point of view. So we've got expats around the world who we help invest in both in Australia and New Zealand using our platform. Yeah,
we've got quite a few expat Kiwis overseas who are buying property still now, so I suppose it's their way to keep in touch with, as you said, what it is when they come back, but also the ones that are buying now. It certainly helps them out.
Well, I think Australia is New Zealand's biggest city behind Auckland, right?
Yeah, I know. I've got a lot of people in Asia at the moment buying here, buying properties. People over there, Kiwis, have ventured over there for 5 or 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And with a million New Zealanders spread around the world, it's logical that they want to invest where they want to return to. So interestingly, we talk about a population of 4.5, but it's really 5.5. million Kiwis altogether, and I think more than half of those plan to return home at some point. So we have, and John Key, I think, has done a pretty good job of getting them to come home sooner. Based if you read if you believe what you read, New Zealand Herald.
Yeah, and I suppose the good thing about the expat Kiwis, a majority of them are overseas, they're earning good money, and they're into property, so they want something to come home to. So
that's right.
Yeah. So, and do you know sort of what sort of cross range of members you have, as in how experienced the investors are? Are they sort of newbies who have joined up to you, or experienced guys, or
Well, it's a good question, Mark. And a funny thing, up until about 18 months ago, we just assumed anybody that registered with our website or used our services understood investing. And one of our team that manage our marketing said, we've got customers that regularly ask us questions, which really clearly suggests they don't understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we implemented this new process called profiling. And so now we ask our investors, are you a first-time investor? Are you an existing investor? Or are you a full-time investor, i.e. it's your day job? And around about 45% of our clients are first-time investors that are using our website and our services. Mm-hmm. I think something like 47% are existing investors. So
okay.
Of those who own property, who use our services, they own an average 5.5 investment properties. And then about 3% are full-time investors, i.e. it's their day job. They now manage a portfolio professionally, et cetera, et cetera. So everything we do now really, by and large, centers around, hey, you're a first-time investor. How can we teach you the ABCs and how can you use this information to get your portfolio started? And the other half of what we do is, hey, you're an existing investor, so we won't teach you the ABCs, but let's have you refine what you do and build a smarter, more profitable portfolio over time.
Yeah, well, that's a good. Yeah, that's great cross range. I know you'll talk afterwards about you sort of do further education also, but like we are with the podcast, as we speak, which we'll talk about afterwards. But
just actually, it's a good point you made, because one of the things we've discovered, and probably more by accident than good management, in the last 18 months we've put a lot more work into how do we change what we do and how do we keep providing new content, teaching new stuff. Because what we did was we did the same thing year after year for about 7 years, or week after week for about 7 years. We said, here's what we do, you should buy it. Here's what we do, you should buy it. And interestingly, if we've moved our focus towards how do we educate our clients as new investors or existing investors to manage their portfolio, build it, to get depreciation right, finance right, renovating right, we've got this growth and this audience now who comes back time after time after time for new stuff. Funny that. As opposed to not coming back time after time for the same old stuff. So the more that we're focused on educating our clients, the more that they use our tools as a byproduct, as opposed to us, showing you 57 different ways to use all the special features. So it's really led to a shift in our business, and primarily it's around, okay, who are you and what you're trying to achieve. So let's help you to achieve what you're trying to achieve, as opposed to just saying, we've got one flavour and it's called vanilla, do you want it? And that seems to be working really well from the feedback that we get with the webinars that we do weekly to educate our clients.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's an important way to help the clients, and I suppose if you do that, they're more likely to use your tools. But I think what you said there, the average investor has 5.5 properties that uses your product. It's probably a good confidence booster that it's a good product.
Well, it is, and if you look at the census data in New Zealand, the percentage of investors that invest in property, of the quarter of a million property investors, 1.7% of investors, or about 4,000 New Zealanders, own 5 or more properties. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you own 5 more properties, you're in the top 2% of property investors, which is just of property investors, not the whole population. So it's a pretty big achievement.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's good. Hey, can you give an example of what maybe some of your members have achieved by using your services?
Yeah, so some good examples. We've had a lot of clients that have been able to find high-yielding property across New Zealand, so that they've been able to then renovate and add value to. So, example, we had a client, John, who's based in Dunedin. He found a block of 3 units on one title on the market, or 3 flats. They were on the market for, I think, 270,000. He bought the property for 230, so it's 3 times one-bedroom units for 230,000. Renovated it, spent about $30,000-$40,000 renovating it, so its costs were about $260 all up. Had it revalued at $350, but the key thing was he could then rent that out on a 12% yield. So sometimes investors get hung up on, should I buy for growth or should I buy for discount or should I buy for cash flow or what have you? And the answer really is, if you want to maximize your total return, you want to buy property below market value that you can add value to. And in many cases, if it's outside of Auckland, you want to make sure you get modest to good yields because you're not going to get the same growth rates historically that Auckland seems to be getting right now. But also you want to make sure that it's a pathway to your next property. So if I can create equity as I go along, revalue the property in 6 to 12 months, pull more equity out, refinance, go buy another property, that sets you on that pathway. So we've got lots of examples of people who find discounted property they can renovate, subdivide, add value to. Not as commonly known, where you buy a block of flats, say maybe 4 flats on one title, that you can then unit title and put onto individual titles. And anything you can divide from 1 into 4 pieces creates more value.
And obviously part of that is finding out what the end result's going to be, and that's what I suppose Investar comes in with the strength of it. So it all comes down to figures, and you want to know obviously how much it's going to cost. Yes, it won't tell you that obviously, but putting those figures in there against what the end result will be, that's a great result you guy in Dunedin had, which is a great market to do that in.
And if you can start off by saying what's it worth today, and what could it be worth, so I can work out what I have to pay, knowing what my costs are, then what starts to happen is people start to buy with a strategy in mind as opposed to buying and hoping. And the great thing about property is it's pretty forgiving. You can pretty much buy anything in New Zealand and eventually it's going to go up in value. It's just that it might take 20 years in some locations. In an ideal world, if you can create value at the point of entry and add value and get good cash flow, then the upside is a bonus along the way. And so, property can, as you know, Mark, properties deals are made, not sort of stepped on. So you might see an opportunity in a property, and the way you put together the deal and what you then do with it makes it fantastic. Another investor might go past and go, that looks pretty average. No opportunity there. So for the people that want to think creatively and focus by strategy, we can help you match the 120,000 sales listings at any point in time in the market to the ones that fit the strategies that you have in mind by location, budget, strategy, by numbers. So really turning into a paint by numbers exercise as opposed to oh my goodness, there's 50 properties and they all look the same and I don't even know what they're worth, which is the dilemma that most investors face. Because let's face it, they've got day jobs, they're not in the market all the time, so they don't necessarily understand those things.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, the more education, the more stats you have to back it up. Gumption to go out and do it is great. So, hey, I believe you have a partnership with the Xero. Obviously, Xero is a new accounting software that all the major accountancy companies seem to be moving into. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's quite interesting. Xero, a startup, New Zealand startup, 2006, now listed on the NZX and the ASX with a market cap of, it bounces around, but anywhere between sort of $2.5 and $3 billion, and described by Deloitte about a year and a half ago as the Apple of the accounting industry. And who would have thought that accounting could be sexy from a software point of view? So our partnership with Xero, so we became what's called an add-on partner November last year. When we set out to partner with Xero, it was August 2012. And we said, hey, this is interesting. We've got all these clients that manage portfolios, and they all have accountants. And right now, the information that accountants gives them bears no resemblance to their portfolio.
Yeah.
Because, your balance sheet's the depreciated asset value. So the accountant tells you, hey, the book value's gone down. And you're like, hey, but the market value's gone up. How does that work? Equally, the accountant has no idea of your property value, so they can't give you any guidance on debt to service ratios, loan to value ratios, or what you can do next. So we set out to develop a portfolio tracker that brings in market data. So if I know the properties that I own, what are my cash flow and growth forecasts for 10 years, and then what's actually happening? And we said to Xero, if we plug that into Xero, and they could bring in their bank feeds, which bring in income and expenses by property, then surely if we put that together, not only do they have a portfolio that actually lives in real time in terms of the market values and the market data, but also the actual data, but it also means at the end of the year, there's no more having to gather up statements, receipts, a shoebox of information. There's no more paying accountants hundreds of dollars a year to sit there keying in property management statements or bank statements, because it's all integrated through their bank accounts, through Xero and through Real Estate Investor. So we said to Xero, we think we could create this, and they said that'd be awesome, because in the add-ons category, 99% of software add-ons are focused on small businesses, not on the property investor. We said, that's great. We think that'll take 6 months and it'll cost us about $500,000. And they said, cool, we'll see you at the end of the year. Anyway, $2.1 million, and 20 months later, fast forward to November last year, we finally finished our Portfolio Tracker add-on, because in building it, we actually had to redevelop our entire site so that everything seamlessly flows from our search engine into our analysis engine, into our portfolio engine, and into Xero. And so what that now means is our clients can use our tools that include Xero for less than the cost of what they would be paying an existing accountant to manually key that data in at the end of the year. But the beauty of that is you're now in real time. So every week, every month, I know my actual position. I'm always finance ready. I always know my position. I know if I'm on track. And we partner with CoreLogic to bring in estimated market valuations every month on every property in your portfolio, so you always have that updated equity picture.
Jeez, so when you go to a bank or your broker for lending, your job is not only presenting something pretty professional to them, it's easy just to print off right there and then, or even just a PDF and send it to them, I guess.
Absolutely, and the funny thing is we're focused on investors, but brokers love it because their clients are organised and ready and easy to write finance for. Accountants love it because now they can actually help their clients do their accounting as they go through the year, as Xero does, rather than this big kind of rush at the end of the year. Or, oh my goodness, I need to buy another property. I've got to apply for finance. I can't answer these questions. Can you do these interim accounts for me? You're living in real time now, so cutting out cost, stress, time, and you're always market ready. And the great thing is, in a rising market, you then know the extra equity you have in your portfolio without having to pay for a valuer to come out and tell you that from a planning point of view. So that's exciting. So that works in New Zealand and Australia. And right now, we're the only partner globally with Xero that provide integrated portfolio tools for property investors.
Oh, great stuff. So well done. And that's obviously a lot of clients will be pretty happy with that tool, I'm sure.
Correct, and we were able to go to all of our existing clients and say, hey, guess what? Here's Xero, and it's free and it's included in your subscription. Plug it in and start using it. And so we've had all these clients say to their accountants, I'm using this Xero thing. Are you a Xero accountant? And of course, if the accountant says, no, I'm not a Xero accountant, it gets a little bit embarrassing for the accountant. And because the client's then saying, well, I need to find a Xero accountant. And to be fair, Xero have got 30,000 accountants across New Zealand and Australia that are Xero accountants. So it's not like it's a small operation. I think 1/4 of New Zealand's businesses now use Xero, which is an amazing stat when you think about a technology startup of less than 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. To be fair, I've only just started using Xero lately, and once you've got the systems in place, it's a great thing to keep current. Yeah, with your, as I said, your entity that you're related to with it, to keep current with it every day and every month.
So easy, it's almost addictive, and who would have thought you could have accounting software that was easy for anyone to use?
No, that's just not right. Yeah. So obviously you're getting out there with doing things like Xero and chucking your name around again. I believe you were with Deloitte and Wellington just recently to present your solution to their private investing clients. What was that about?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting, Mark, because again we've focused on all of our work in the last 9 years on reaching investors directly, and we now find ourselves in this position 6 months into our Xero rollout, where accountants now see the benefit for their investing clients in terms of helping them get their house in order and make accounting much more easier.
Okay.
So we had Deloitte and Wellington ask us about 2 months ago, hey, would you mind doing a session for our clients in-house? We're going to invite all our private investing clients along. They've all got big portfolios. We'd love to see what they think, and we'd like you to share your technology with them, because as accountants move into the software as a service space, they're becoming far more focused on what software, what tools can my clients now use to enhance their businesses. That's a primary focus. But also now that in the real estate space, where we've got investors who make up 30 to 50% of most accounting firms' clients, they start to see that attractive. So we had Deloitte invite in 50 or 60 clients in Wellington, and we spent an hour and took them through. We're like, here's Xero, here's what you do already. Here's what we can now plug in for you, and it was a great exercise. And we were then that same week at the XeroCon annual conference in Auckland, where there was 1,000 accountants, and it's quite amazing. You take this whole investment world for granted when you're an investor, but you start looking through accountants' eyes, and suddenly it becomes very attractive for them to help start looking forward and planning financially with their clients, instead of just playing catch up with annual accounts, 4 to 6 months in arrears. So it's really starting to change the way accounts interact with their clients in terms of becoming forward-looking instead of backward-looking.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine that'll be the first of a few type meetings you'll be having with larger accountancy firms around the country and probably in Australia too.
Well, exactly. And look, I think so far this year we've had about 50 accounting firms across both countries come on board and say, can we recommend our services to your services to our clients?
Yep.
And we're like, yep, that'd be great. And for us, it's a real, I guess, it's a sign that we're on the right track because accountants are notorious for selling nothing. They've got their clients' best interests at heart. They're bound to by their code of ethics. They don't sell anything or recommend anything. And historically, some accountants are quite cynical about their clients spending any money at all. So we take it as a good sign that accountants now see the value is far in excess of the cost of a subscription in terms of having their clients. So it's exciting times. It really is. And with our business, the ability now to grow it off the back of what Xero's doing here in Australia and New Zealand and further afield in the future, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope not upsetting too many accountants out there, but that's all good.
No, well, mostly they'll love us, and the smart accountants are embracing software as a service, as you know, and realizing that data entry is like the factory workers of 60 years ago. If machines or computers can do it now, why would you pay somebody to sit there keying stuff to do mindless work, keying transactions into computer systems, into accounting software? So it's Xero is really reinventing a whole industry, and the early adopters embracing it, but there's going to be some accounting firms that go out of business if they stick with their highly labour-intensive, high-fee structure type model. They will be replaced at some point because Xero's having that effect with digitisation.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I'm interested myself with other real estate agents. I know the cost of RPNZ and Property Guru and what have you. Do many agents use use Investar?
No, well, it's a good point. So virtually none, and for two reasons. First of all, in my experience, despite real estate agents being immersed in real estate all day long and all week long, on average, home ownership with real estate agents and those that invest in property is average or below average, not above average in terms of a percentage of the population, as you might think. So despite them seeing people making money all day long in real estate all week long, they don't necessarily immerse themselves into it. So agents are naturally attracted to us. If anything, we're kind of like the Antichrist. We're arming their customers with tools and information to use against them and to help level the playing field in the process. The other thing is we're prohibited from licensing any of the CoreLogic technology to agents because our clients get at a special rate because of our volume that we leverage for clients in terms of pricing, and they get a single solution that includes all of the investment tools and CoreLogic. We can't sell CoreLogic on its own, and clearly we can't do anything that undermines CoreLogic's business and expertise around the agents. So for that reason, we're not attractive to agents, and we can't knowingly license to them either. But I have no doubt we have the odd agent who is quite sharp, who invests in property, probably has a Gmail account, and probably uses our services for his or her own portfolio. But surprisingly, agents don't actually get what we do, which is a good thing, right? It's a good thing for the investor.
Yeah, great for the investor. And you did touch it on there, and of course, everyone listening here, you know what they're going to want to know. How much does this cost? What does the membership cost, and how long does it go for?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, post our launch of our Xero add-on, we now have two membership options. So, if you own an existing property portfolio and your whole focus is, I just want to manage my portfolio better, I want to maximise returns, I want to know how it's performing, I want access to market data, and I want to integrated with Xero to streamline all of my accounting costs and process, then membership at a portfolio manager level, I should say, is anywhere from $29 to $69 a month, based on whether you get it through your accountant or directly from us, based on whether we include Xero or the accountant provides Xero, and based on whether you want to take a casual membership or a one or 2 year contract option. So that's the price range at that level. Once you add on the search tools for searching the market and the CoreLogic platform, which allows you to do all your sales analysis and valuation research, then membership is anywhere from $79 a month up to $249 a month, depending on whether you're casual or on a 1 or 2 year term, and depending on whether we provide Xero or the accountant provides it for you. So the way that most of our members look at membership, they say, okay, if I could spend $1,000 a year on membership and I could make $20 a week more in terms of my portfolio returns, well, that would pay for itself. And then if I happen to buy my next property and save $10 or $20 or $30,000, or avoid paying too much, then I've probably paid for real estate investor for the next 20 or 30 years.
That's right.
So that's the approach we take. So, and again, it's national access, which is exciting. And in fact, with our search engine, you can search all of Australia and all of New Zealand and analyse the entire 2 countries from New Zealand membership.
Yeah, and they're not saying what's right and what's wrong, but Property Guru and RPNZ cost about that top range of what you're talking about there, and their product's good. As you said, it's the same sort of product that you have, but you have the additional features of tying it all in together and having your portfolio. I forgot what you called it. The building your where you basically build your portfolio up.
Correct. So CoreLogic as a platform allows you to do all your sales analysis and legal research, etc. So because we provide investor search, property analyzer, portfolio tracker, Xero, and the CoreLogic platform, getting an entire solution that's designed to work together, and where you're paying $200 to $300 directly per month at a regional level in many cases for CoreLogic now. We give you national access for as little as $79 a month, including all of our tools plus CoreLogic included. So as a solution for an investor, it's very palatable now in terms of the return, in terms of value, but also the peace of mind. And as many success stories as we have with members who have done well, by and far, it's all about the deals they didn't do or didn't buy, because when they used our tools to do the research, they realised the numbers didn't stack up, the value didn't stack up, they couldn't do the things they thought they could do with it, the end result wasn't going to be great. Or when they went to auction and said, my top price is $300 and it sold for $350, they quite happily sat on their hands because they knew they'd be paying way too much. So it's the things we save you from doing, because as you know, Mark, as an investor, there's 100 choices every week that tick most of the boxes, but there's 2 or 3 that are going to be fantastic. But unfortunately, people get to the stage where they think, oh, look, it's all too hard, I've just got to buy something. And often they buy something that's not quite the right thing.
Don't buy. Believe me, don't buy from desperation. I did that many years ago.
That's right. And it's not what you buy today, but it's what allows you to buy next. And if what you buy today stops you buying your next property for 5 or 10 years,
correct,
then it's the opportunity cost of maybe adding that portfolio of 3 to 5 properties to your wealth base over the next 10 years versus being stuck with one poor performer that's not growing, that's big on negative cash flow, that has building quality issues or tenancy issues, etc. And there's the majority of the horror stories out there are all preventable problems if you did your research and did your numbers and obviously did all your property inspections as well. So it's if you don't rush in and you take your time, you'll be thankful for the result, because if you're $20,000 or $30,000 better off because you buy well, hey, look, if you spend even 10, 20, 30, 40 hours on that, your hourly rate's still pretty attractive. So those are the opportunities in real estate.
Yeah. Take the emotion out of buying and just put it down to figures, and that's it. If you can do that, you'll do pretty well. And just going back a couple of steps, well, from what you said is, one of the common, not complaints, but just disgruntled people or investors who are just starting out. They just say, geez, how do you get this information? How do you find out? Where do I start? And obviously, you've got the one tool there for those people.
Look, when I started investing in 1999, this wasn't available. You read the classifieds in the newspaper, and you just didn't have access to any data at all. And the risks that you take when you're buying and hoping are immense. And we're in a market where interest rates are at World War II lows. They're not going to stay that way forever. So being discerning when you buy today could be what saves you in 5 or 7 years' time when interest rates end up back at 7.5% or 8% or maybe 9% if the economy's topping out and the Reserve Bank brings the other big bloody blunt instrument and starts pounding away at the cash rate. Yeah. So it's all about planning for a rainy day, not just thinking about today. Because as I've learned, it's easy to make money in real estate, but it's just as easy to lose it and lose a lot if you're not careful.
Yeah. And then you're not only getting that, you're also getting your online webinars and other tools that you have on your website as well, which is good. And then is there some way an investor can actually trial this, or they just have to go out and fork out their $29 or $249 or whatever they do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a couple of things. We like people to know what they're in for. So if you go to Real Estate Investar, that's investar.co.nz. So on that homepage, you can, it's a couple of short videos you can watch. You can sign up for any of our membership options and take a 21-day free trial. It asks you for your credit card details to verify that you're a real person and not some website robot. But you get charged nothing for 21 days. You get full access to the entire platform and all of our support and training as part of that, including the CoreLogic platform. So you can do that through our site directly. If you go to that home page, realestateinvestar.co.nz, if you click on a demo button, that takes you to a page of pre-recorded webinars where you get the webinars for about an hour there that you can watch in your own time, and often live webinars that we have coming up that you can book and attend and ask questions as well. So absolutely, we want you to try before you buy. That is your only option. You get a 21-day free trial. You get to cancel within 21 days if you want to. You have full control of that. And only after 21 days, if you haven't cancelled and you're happy with membership, does it then kick off your monthly membership plan or whatever you've chosen. So it's pretty easy, and it's very popular. And that was only available from the 1st of April this year, so about 6 weeks ago, as a result of CoreLogic partnering with us to provide free trials. There is no other way of trying their platform for free in New Zealand. Because of the value of it and because of what it's sold for commercially on a monthly basis.
I'll get ready for an ambush of a whole lot of free trials coming from listeners, but and now I know why you have held me off for a few months before you spoke on the podcast with the CoreLogic, I suppose, coming on board and Xero and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the changes that CoreLogic have made to our partnership structure have been fantastic in terms of price reductions, in terms of the free trial model. And in April, so last month, we added more new membership trialists for the month than we did for the whole of 2014. So, it shows you if you get pricing right and you make it easier for people to try your product, that the volume changes as well. So that's, we take that as a good sign. And some people will say, yep, that's great, it can help me now. Others will say, well, I tried it, I liked it, but I'm not ready to use it for 6 to 12 months, and that's okay too. We're just happy for them to take a test drive and make sure that they can get the value out of what we provide.
Great stuff. No, that's me. It's been great talking to you, David, and thanks for your time. I know you're a busy man, and those listeners that don't know David, he's got a bit of an Aussie twang there, but he is a true South Islander from sunny Marlborough.
That's right. It is a small world, isn't it?
Yeah, it is indeed. Hey, it's been great talking to you. I don't know if you want to add anything on about again. You have said your website. Maybe you want to mention again, or anything you want to add on or say to any new investors out there.
No, that's good, Mark, and certainly, thanks for having us on your podcast. We'll certainly be sharing it with our New Zealand and Australian listeners, our audience, so they get access to listening to this through your site too. The podcast that you provide is excellent. I've listened to a number of your back issues over the last few months, driving backwards and forwards in my car. And audio education is fantastic. You don't have to sit in a room. You don't have to sit at home watching videos. You have to read your way through a workbook. You can listen to it in the car or on the train or what have you. So what you're doing from providing a rounded out educational approach to property investors and utilising various people from within the industry and outside the industry is fantastic. So congratulations on that. There's nothing else I've seen as good as what you're doing in the space, and I think it's really valuable and it helps people build out a picture. We're looking to start investing, and the more that people have access to information, education, tools, in an impartial way, I think the better off the country will be, and certainly the better off investors will be. So the service she provides is excellent, and it's just a privilege for us to be able to contribute to that. So thanks for having us on your show and sharing this with your audience.
Oh, that's tremendous, and thanks for those great words. So, thanks very much, David. So we really hope you got a lot out of today's show. There are a lot of tools out there that people can use to find information out about properties. Some information is free and limited, and some you have to really pay a lot for. And then you get some like this that provides all sorts of information and really brings everything all together. So we'd like to thank David for his time, and then thank you all for listening. And we'll be back next week. Have a great week.